call this, what did we do yesterday? 3.12? So in our notes, we'll call this a global 313. We are still on the Buddhism. That is the belief in Buddha, the spiritual leader, if you will. So Buddhism's kind of strange, right? Because Buddha is not really a god. Okay, Buddha was a human, like we described yesterday. This Siddhartha Gautama, and he was like a prince, and then he goes and sits under the fig tree, and he has these realizations that there's suffering in the world, and there's a way out of suffering, and the Four Noble Truths, everything that we went through yesterday, right? But Buddha is not really thought of as a god, right? He is a human. He's not a god. And Buddhism works very similar to Hinduism with regards to the gods, right? So there's multiple gods. This is polytheistic. We're just kind of cleaning up the Buddhism lesson from yesterday. Meaning that there are many gods. And this whole idea of, what was the big idea with Hinduism? Because Hinduism and Buddhism come out of the same continent or subcontinent of India, correct? So they're going to be really, really similar. In fact, one might argue that Buddhism fixes one of the big problems with Hinduism, which we'll get to in a minute. What was the whole concept of Hinduism? When you die, what happened? Hello, children at home. In Hinduism, which is our previous religion, when you die, what allegedly happens?
You're reborn.
You're reborn. What was that called?
They're reincarnated.
Reincarnation. Thank you. Kids at home, you're going to have to participate. I'm videoing, and I can't have like a 5-minute gap of waiting for you to answer. So you got to be on this a little bit. Reincarnation is this series of rebirths. But here's sort of the big difference, right? Here is how reincarnation in Buddhism is a little different than reincarnation in Hinduism. In Hinduism, which is our previous religion that we covered, right? With Hinduism, you were reborn, and the idea of being reborn, you don't have to put this in your notes because this is just a refresher from Hinduism. The whole idea of being reborn is that if you fulfilled your dharma and your karma, when you died, you would go, sort of like in Super Mario Brothers, to the next
level.
Yeah, you could level up, correct. And if you did not fulfill your life purpose or you had bad karma, then you would go level down and you could literally go backwards. Buddhism is a different idea of reincarnation. The caste system, right? The system of leveling up and leveling down and fulfilling your life purpose, if you will. It was a system that kept people from complaining if they had suffering, right? If they suffered and they were miserable in Hinduism, they weren't supposed to complain about it because that was their station in life. They were supposed to experience that suffering and not whine about it. And if you didn't whine about it and did your life purpose, fulfilled your dharma, then you'd go level up. In Buddhism, this is a big key. In Buddhism, they have this idea of reincarnation, this series of rebirths, but your life purpose is very different. There is no caste system. And so in that way, some might say that Buddhism sort of fixed the big issues, the big societal or social issues of Hinduism, right? There's no caste system here in Buddhism. So this idea of leveling up and leveling down doesn't exist. Your life purpose, right? Your life purpose in Buddhism is to discover the Four Noble Truths. And these are the truths that we talked about yesterday. You're supposed to understand that a suffering is a part of life. Now, these people over here in Hinduism, they understood that suffering was a part of life, except were they to complain about it? Were they allowed to complain about it in Hinduism? If you suffered, it was just part of your life purpose. Like, it was a part of your experience that you were supposed to deal with and not whine about. In Buddhism, it's a little different, right? The Four Noble Truths we had yesterday is that there's suffering, but then you're supposed to go, well, if there's suffering, there's a cause, that tanha, where you think like things can last forever. And if there's a cause, then there must be an end. There must be a way out of suffering. And so here's the big kicker, right? The way out of suffering was to follow this eightfold path. Now, this is a lot of like terms, right? I'm going to give you a little trick over here to remember this. Well, actually, I'll do it up here. Let me get a different color. In your notes, I don't know how you want to do this. Maybe down, like in your notes, you should maybe be down here, but I'm going to do it up here to show you. See the B in Buddhism? If I kind of cut this B in half and reflect it, what number do I get?
8.
8. So this is just a trick that I've developed to get kids to remember that the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path are a part of Buddhism, right? If I take the B in Buddhism and I turn it into an 8, if I take the 8 and cut it in half to get Buddhism, that gives me what number? 8 divided by 2?
4.
Is 4. And so I've got the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. And I should remember that that's Buddhism and not Hinduism because of the big B in Buddhism. You follow me on that? It's just a memory device. It has nothing to do with the religion at all. It's just something that we can use to remember that the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths go with Buddhism. Okay, so really nothing to do with the religion at all. It's just a memory device. So on a test, if you see Four Noble Truths or Eightfold Path, I instantly think Buddhism, right? And that's going to get me through some test questions. Dig that? Okay. Now, here is this Eightfold Path. Your life purpose then becomes to follow the Eightfold Path. And if you follow the Eightfold Path, you can get out of suffering. And if you get out of suffering, you enter a state, right? If you end your own suffering, then you establish this idea where if you die, you enter a state called nirvana, which was also a pretty cool 1990s rock band, by the way, right? But this idea of nirvana, you become one with the universe. You have no more suffering, and you literally, like when you die, you just become one with the universe because you have like true, full understanding of everything, and you have no more suffering in your life. So that would be a little bit like in Hinduism. If you keep leveling up and leveling up and leveling up, you can achieve that sort of higher state finally. In Buddhism, you don't do it by leveling up. Every life, every rebirth that you have is a way to try and fix, right, this idea that there's suffering in your life. You're almost like trying to like play a game where you figure out how to beat the levels, and by following that path, you can achieve nirvana. But there's no caste system. So there's nobody like forcing you to arrange your marriage, which could arguably cause suffering, right? If you have to marry somebody that you don't actually love in an arranged marriage. You can hang out with people from other social groups, which in Hinduism you're really not supposed to do. How about in Buddhism? Is there an idea of an untouchable person that's so dirty you can't hang out with them and they're trapped forever? Is that idea of an untouchable in Buddhism? Dom shrugging. No, right? Because that's Hindu. That's part of this caste system. If you're untouchable, you're sort of like off the caste system, and that is the Hindu religion. So Hinduism created all sorts of social issues and social problems. Buddhism does not. Buddhism sort of fixes that by getting rid of the caste system, There's no more social groups. You don't have to particularly hang out with anybody. You can't get kicked off the caste system forever and be an untouchable. It's a much happier, friendlier sort of religion where you're free to sort of discover on your own through self-examination, self-meditation. Some people might even say in a modern sense, like going to see a psychologist to sort of really understand what causes the pain in your life. Some people might say that might be a modern equivalent, right? And the idea is to kind of get to a state where you're totally comfortable with yourself as a person, and you're totally like comfortable being nice to everyone in the world around you. And if you achieve that state, then finally when you pass away, at some point in many of your rebirths, you will enter this upper, higher state of nirvana. Okay, that's the gist of it. So I guess my goal today, right, I wanted to introduce this idea of the Eightfold Path. We don't have to know all 8 things you got to do. I mean, you can look them up in your mind. It's a lot of being what Buddha referred to as being correct. These are correct behaviors. You know, be nice to other people. Be nice to yourself. Let's examine maybe just a couple of the other ones here. You have to have the right mind, meaning like you should have like a good, a nice self-view, right? You should be nice to yourself. You should meditate. You should intend no evil is one of the steps on the Eightfold Path. You should not say anything that hurts other people. So bullying and being a jerk would not be allowed in Buddhism. And if you bully people and you're a jerk, you are causing suffering to others, and you're not really understanding this whole the whole truth of life, according to Buddha. You should have correct actions. Okay, and you should have correct efforts. You should always try your best to accomplish tasks, etc. Right? And so Buddha comes up with these 8 things you got to do. They all sort of relate to having a correct behavior pattern. And if you truly achieve these things, poof, off to nirvana you go. I would like to become one with the universe someday. I think that would be cool, right? Like, imagine like your whole like life spirit just enters the universe, and then you have complete understanding of everything. That's amazing to me. Maybe I should become a Buddhist. I was doing a good job yesterday. Do you like my hat yesterday? I like my hat yesterday.